All right, so I just got back from watching Toy Story 5, the latest Toy Story movie. This comes out 7 years after Toy Story 4, which came out 9 years after Toy Story 3, which came out 11 years after Toy Story 2, which came out 4 years after Toy Story 1. So there's a bit of a traditional gap between these movies, a bit of a generational gap, I would say, except for the first two. So, yeah, people have been cautiously optimistic about this one, I would say. I think the toys taking on technology is very applicable to the times. It has been for many years now, so it would make sense that Toy Story finally makes a movie that's kind of about this. And yeah, I will say I do think the first three Toy Story movies are pretty much masterpieces, especially two and three. I don't see how you can get much better than that one. A lot of people kind of poo poo four. I don't think four is that bad. It's not as good as the first three by far. But it is, I see it as more of an epilogue movie. I just like it as sort of a, like an additional chapter, but I don't see it as kind of part of the main three. But, it's not a bad movie. I think it's fine. So I was curious to see what they would do with five. I'm not against them making more of these as long as they are good. And I'm pleased to say that this movie is very good. I think it is better than four. It's not as good as one, two, and three, but it is more. I feel like this story, there's a reason for it to exist more than four did, where four kind of felt more like less of a Toy Story movie, more of a Woody movie. This really does feel like a Toy Story movie. Again, not as good as the first three, but pretty good. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's about the toys against technology, and this one puts a lot of the focus on Jesse, which I think is smart because there's only so much character you can give to Woody and Buzz, particularly Woody, before it starts getting old, or you start repeating the same things over and over again. Like, how many times is Woody going to learn this lesson, or how many lessons does he have to learn? So, shifting the focus to Jessie, while it might upset some of the purists, I think made a lot of sense, especially since she's the one that, their new kid, Bonnie, she's the one that is the main toy. She's the one that she likes. So obviously she's the one that is the most threatened by the arrival of technology into their home. One of the things I appreciated about this movie is that it takes a semi-nuanced approach to technology where it's not all bad. There's definitely bad things about it that the movie explores, but it also shows how technology can be used in a positive way for children, which I did appreciate. And I do think this, while four seemed like a nice enough epilogue for Woody, I feel like five is a pretty good epilogue for Jesse. There is a moment in particular right about the beginning of the third act that absolutely floored me. I wasn't expecting to get floored in this movie. I know it's Pixar, they have a reputation, but they haven't floored me in a while. But there is a moment in this movie that floored me, that made me be like, okay, this is better than four. I won't spoil what it is, but I was like, this is the best part of the movie right here. And I will say, there's a moment before that where the movie, up until this point, it's like fine, like it's okay. I would say the first hour is like, okay, this is a lot like four. Like, it's not bad, but it's fine, it's good. But then about the hour mark, there's about 40 minutes left of the movie. So we're about halfway through. And the movie kind of takes a turn with a certain character, where I was like, oh, now I'm interested. Now I want to see now it feels like the plot is really going. Now, is it bad that the movie took an hour to get interesting? Maybe, but it was pretty interesting. And I do think this movie does a lot of good stuff for Jesse's character. Now, as far as some criticisms go, there's not a lot for Woody or Buzz to do here. Buzz has this subplot that is very similar to Kristoff's subplot from Frozen 2. and we all know how everybody thinks about that subplot, that it was kind of useless. And it's, I guess it's less useless here, but it's still kind of useless. But I was more invested in it than I was in Frozen 2, so, you know, your mileage might vary on that. Woody is definitely in a supporting role here, which is it's fine. Like I said, I don't mind him being more of a secondary character because he's had like 4 movies where he's the main guy. So it's okay for him to step back for this one, I feel. But one of the things, and this is purely a preference thing, and one of the reasons why I don't like 4 or this one 5 as much as the first 3 is one of my favorite things about the first 3 was the other toys. Mr. Potato Head, Ham, Slinky Dog, Rex, you know, all those guys, Mrs. Potato Head eventually. And they all were side characters, sure, but they all had stuff to do. They all had moments to shine. And starting with 4, they're just kind of there. They're almost like, you know, like the Greek chorus in old Greek plays that are just there in the background commenting on the story. And starting with 4, and sadly, including this one, they are all just kind of there. There's not much for them to do. They're not involved in the story in any way whatsoever. They're just here to comment on the story whenever they're around. And I don't know, I kind of, like, I remember in the 3rd movie when they had this big, like, great escape plan when they were trying to escape the daycare, and everyone had a role, and it was so satisfying to see their escape plan, and Slinky Dog and Woody were, like, going, and they had to take out the monkey, you know? And in the 2nd movie, when they were in the airport with the, I'm blanking. The carry-on, not carry-ons, but like the baggage, you know, where you put the baggage and it goes into the underside of the plane, and they were going in there, and Slinky Dog again, but Slinky Dog and Woody and Buzz this time are like jumping around trying to find Woody and all of these suitcases. There's stuff like that it's just kind of, that magic is sort of lost, where these characters are kind of forgotten in favor of our main characters being Woody, Buzz, and Jesse. Bullseye is still around. Bullseye still got stuff to do. But yeah, so that is, again, it's not a big deal. I think most people won't care. But for me personally, that is a big element of the first 3 movies that I'm missing in these more modern Toy Story movies. But beyond that, this is a pretty decent movie. I definitely recommend it. I think if you're a Toy Story fan, I don't know if you'll like it as much as I did, but I don't think anyone, I find it really hard to see anybody absolutely hating this movie. It is very well made. At most, at the worst, you might think it's as good as the 4th one. Now, I know some people hate the 4th one, so, but I liked it. I think if you're a Toy Story fan, you'll enjoy it. Will little kids dig it? I think so. There were 2 kids in my theater that were a little squirmy because these Toy Story movies have always been a bit more introspective than, like, you know, your Minions movies, for example. But that's kind of the magic of the Toy Story movies, is that adults can enjoy them just as much as kids. And I feel like that's true of this one as well. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on Toy Story 5.